There we go. It says I'm live. Not off that link. I hadn't go with that, but let me go check. There, now I'm live, so I'm going to share it out. Please, Jamie, do me a big favor, share that link out. Everybody watching, it catches this right now. Do me a favor and share out the live link. See, I did this whole pre-schedule thing. I was like, cool, it works. And I even tested it, and guess what? Then it didn't work. Again, how you doing tonight, Varla?
I'm doing good. Can you chat me that live link so I can share it on my page real quick?
Yep.
Just
I'm going to send it to you right now. I'm sending it right on Facebook. I had this whole thing, so excited about pre-scheduling the show, the video, and it didn't work.
Well, you know what? Not the last time I was on here, but the last time I did a live show, we never actually went live. So basically the host and I just rolled with it. We recorded it. It came up later. So it wasn't actually live, but okay. So let me see. I've got the link.
Everybody misses our cool intro. Oh, well. As long as we're live now.
Sound. Okay. This might do something weird with sound. I'm actually going to mute myself for a second.
Oh.
I can't hear you because I muted myself because I'm going to share this on my page. Here.
Make sure we share it out. Tonight's our guest, for people while she's sharing out, is Varla Ventura. We are a little late tonight. I did a pre-scheduled show, and it did not work. So that's why we didn't go live right away at 10. It just wasn't working. Thank you for stopping me, Jamie.
Yeah. Where am I?
And Varla's trying to share out the link on her end right now.
All right.
But she's not muted. She thinks she is.
Make sure it's right. And okay. Okay.
Oh.
Good.
All right, we're good. You weren't muted. I could hear you.
There we go. Yeah. Oh, I wasn't muted.
No.
I muted the. Okay. Well, I messed up, but I think we got it now.
Okay. During commercial breaks, Varla, there's a little technical side people get to hear. I can't mute you, so during commercial breaks, when you hear the music rolling, go ahead and make sure you mute yourself. Yep. Okay. All right. Well, let's go ahead. We're running late, guys. Sorry. I want to make sure let's go ahead and roll into our World Wide Web of Weird. Tonight on the World Wide Web of Weird, we're going to start off with a story we talked about months ago on the World Wide Web of Weird. This comes from metro.co.uk. Laptop of British UFO hunter was reportedly wiped clean before handed back to his family after he mysteriously died. Remember we talked about Max Spears. He was 39, and he died in a mysterious way. And some people believe he was onto something, and somebody might have taken care of him. For people listening on Late Night in the Midlands, like I said, we are a webcast, so we show videos and pictures out to our Facebook page, Midwest Paranormal Presents Paranormal Soup, where you can see videos and pictures. There's a cool video we got tonight. So some cool stuff, but you can listen. I try to narrate. For people watching on Facebook, just so you know, when we go to commercial break, there is music, so don't freak out when it gets quiet because we can't play that on Facebook. All right, the sudden death of Max Spears, 39, has been shrouded in mystery after his friends discovered his body while he was on a trip to Poland to visit a conference. In December of 2016, the court heard the conspiracy theorist vomited 2 liters of black blood. That's right. This was last year or 2 years ago. God, it's been that long. Holy, wow. Time flies. Theorists vomited 2 liters of black blood before he died, but the inquest was adjourned. His inquest will now be held over for 4 days from January 7th next year. Authorities in Poland, where Mr. Spears was attending a conference, initially concluded the sudden death was due to natural causes. He puked up black vomit. How is that natural? And he was 39. He's my age, 39 years old. A message from his phone sent to his mother, Vanessa Bates, before he died, warned, "Your boy's in trouble. If anything happens to me, investigate." come on now. At the pre-inquest review yesterday at the Guildhall in Sandwich, Kent, the court heard the barrister for Mac's mother, Adam Taylor, call for members of the Polish Emergency Services to appear as witnesses. Sections from the 700-page docket of statements and evidence assembled will be translated from the Polish next year's inquest. Possible evidence of over whether disciplinary proceedings were brought against police officers in Poland over Mr. Pierce's death should also be heard. Analysis of the laptop and mobile phone that belonged to the father of two should also be presented at the inquest, the court heard. Mr. said the way in which they were... and then I get one of those Amazon ads right when I'm reading my article. Anyways, they wanted to present this at court. Problem is, when they got the laptop and phone back from the investigators, it was completely wiped. Oh, I don't know how that happened. Whoops, right? There's big problem with, what happened here. There are people who die that are investigators with this. There are cover-ups. There are people that die. We're going to get to more of that tonight. I have a special, not your usual World Wide Web of Weird, but we'll get to that later at the end of the World Wide Web of Weird. Let's move on, though. Number 2. This is a triangle-shaped UFO. This is from HelmsTaleWeebly.com. Huge cloak triangle craft captured over Kansas City, Missouri. Well, the cloak wasn't working. On August 8th, 2018, the witness was driving southeast on I-35 just outside of Kansas City, Missouri at 6 p.m. It was a cloudy day, so he was checking out the formations when he noticed a darker triangular shape just hanging out. How like you got to be to just, looking at the clouds. Oh, there's a UFO. I suspect this one a little bit. I just do. Just a little bit. All right, let's move on. I'm trying to get through it because we were running late. Number 3, this is the cool. Now, this is a security guard. This is from UFOsightings.spot.com. Hold on one second, Jeff, before you play it. The security guard sees and films an alien creature in Argentina. This is from August 15th from UFOsightings.blogspot.com. The strange incident has occurred on Saturday, August 4th, 2018, about 5 in the morning in the city of Cordoba, Villa Maria, Argentina. More exactly in the area of the former Aero Club, including Ramon Carrillo neighborhood and somewhere I don't understand. Eduardo, the security guard of one of the neighboring companies, saw several lights moving over the field behind the company's building near a mountain, so he decided to investigate. When he arrived at the scene about 200 meters from the position, he found several circular marks on the burned ground. You'll see the marks on the burned ground. We get a little echo from Jeff, I think, here because he's about ready to play the audio. So I'm going to have him play it. You're going to see the circle marks, but there's something in the background that moves. And it's hard to see on this video, but definitely go check this out. Like I said, UFOsightings.blogspot.com. You can find this. So we're going to play. Go ahead.
Oh.
You really can't see it on this video here with a share screening it, but if you see the original video, you will see something come out from behind there, and move. Now, when you hear the video, he takes an intake of breath that really sounds like fear. You hear that? That I don't think you get fake. There's something legit to this video, in my opinion. So I'm interested to hopefully find out more. There's an interview with him, but I don't have it. He speaks Spanish, and I don't have a translation of it. And no habla español for me. But I'd like to see the translation of the video of his interview because I'd like to know more what he actually says about the incident. But it's something interesting with it. Okay, let's move on. All right, number 5, another creature. This is a humanoid creature seen by Mount Vernon. I kind of like this article because I've been to many places in the United States. I wish I had traveled more, but I've been to Mount Vernon. I love the history. And I went there when I was a kid, and I loved every part of it. And they were doing an archaeological dig there when I was there, which was really cool. But an unidentified human creature seen near George Washington's estate. This is from Mysterious Universe, which I love this website. Strange unidentified human creature has been spotted near Mount Vernon, just outside the nation's capital. Has one of Washington, D.C.'s reptilian swamp creatures crawled out of her office for a bit of sightseeing during the congressional summer recess. The sighting reportedly occurred a couple miles north of Mount Vernon. Despite its name, Mount Vernon is not a mountain. It is a former plantation home of George Washington, situated on the Potomac River. Today, Mount Vernon is independently owned by a historical attraction. On July 31st, a motorist driving near Mount Vernon spotted what appeared to be a deer by the side of the road until it stood up and ran across the road. MUFON Ohio investigator Ron McClone received a report of the sighting this week, which has been published by the Mount Vernon News. The witness described as credible and requested to remain anonymous. Whoever they are, the eyewitness says the creature ran out of a cornfield and across the highway at a tremendous rate of speed, crossing the highway in only a few steps. According to the witness, the creature appeared to be about 7 to 8 feet tall, hairless with light brown skin and possessing a tall, slender body, arms and legs, and a small diameter hands and feet that looked oversized for its body proportion, small neck with an oval, elongated head. Sounds like an alien. The witness also said the humanoid figure had large, black, oval-shaped eyes, more like an alien, similar to everyone's favorite gray aliens. As it stands now, this is a lone substantial sighting. The Knox County Sheriff's Department has not reported any other sightings from the same area the same date. MUFON has requested anyone with more information to reach out to MUFON Ohio at columbusrr.com. Finally, an interesting story. I mean, what would be, maybe the aliens were big historical buffs and they went to see Mount Vernon. But there's always that famous story of George Washington, and some people believe he met time travelers or he met aliens that showed him a map of the U.S. You remember that story? And, they talk about it on Ancient Aliens all the time, but, I've always loved that story. Maybe it's connected somehow to this creature people saw at his estate. I don't know. It's interesting. All right, let's move on. This one is interesting and more reason why I hate our whole political system. An 11-year-old hacked and changed election results less than 10 minutes during a hacking convention at DEF CON 26. This is from IJR.com. An 11-year-old was able to hack into Florida's voting system and change the results of the election. The DEF CON organizers set up 13 websites modeled after sites in the swing states like Florida. They recruited 39 children between ages of 6 and 17 to 6 years old. My son's 6. He wouldn't be able to hack anything. These are some really smart kids. Between the ages of 6 and 17 to participate in DEF CON voting machine hacking village. The kids were tasked with changing the party names, candidate names, and the total votes candidates received. The challenge took an 11-year-old Emmett Brewer less than 10 minutes to complete on the model of a Florida website. Candidates' names were stopped out with names like Bob the Builder and Kim Jong-un by other middle school hackers. One kid changed the vote totals to impossible numbers given Florida's population, including 12 billion. All these hacks were completed after only receiving an introductory walkthrough of their underlying source code. While the kids running the Hacker Village only manipulated state websites, other DEF CON participants were able to hack the voting machines themselves. Hackers found that the back panel of the machine could be easily removed to reveal one part that controlled the whole machine. Though this one, the hacker was able to gain serial control of the machine, implementing anything they wanted to change. It was pretty scary. I can just go back to the old-fashioned card, punch a hole in it, somebody's got to count it. I guess I didn't work out in like 2001, but I don't know. I've never trusted the voting machines. I don't know how you people feel about it. I just don't. I don't. It just seems too easy for somebody to totally manipulate change, and we have no idea about it. It scares the heck out of me. All right, this last one, these last two, I contemplated doing it all because they're not paranormal, but they're something I'm passionate about and concerns me. Both these things, and it might piss some people off, and I apologize, but the media the media is covering the first story, but not good enough in my opinion. And there's been a billion of these stories, and it's nothing against the Catholic religion. This is about the Catholic Church cover-up of 300 priests sexually abused 1,000 children in Pennsylvania. I'm not going to read the whole article. You can find this one at Democracy Now!, but there's plenty of articles, and you know what? There's plenty of articles of other places in the world where this has been happening. And when's enough? Why would anybody, and like I said, I have friends that are Catholic. I went to a Catholic high school. There's plenty of good Catholic people, and there's good priests. I've known really good priests. That's what I think is so sad about this. There are men who are devoted to God that join the priesthood are good people. But there's obviously a sick inner core or something really majorly wrong going on in the Catholic Church, and they should not get a single penny from anybody. After these kind of stories, and this is not this, everybody's like, oh my God, the satanic rituals, and I mean, I'm serious, satanic rituals. They actually put a boy on a cross and took pictures of him. He was nude on a cross. That's kind of stuff they did. They would have boys, they would put necklaces on so the other priests would know, oh, that's a boy I can get away with. That's kind of sick stuff going on. And this is not the first time. It just keeps happening. Why? And the church has done nothing but prove they don't care about the children. They don't care what happens to the victims. They will move a priest to a different location, knowing what they did, to try to protect the priest and give them an opportunity to do it again. So when are we done with it? When are we done with the Catholic Church? Not the Catholic religion. You could be Catholic, but the church should go. It really should go. All their money should be given away, sued to high, you know what? They should be done. I'm sorry. Too much of this is, we shouldn't. Why are we putting up with this? And why does the media act so shocked anymore about it? Because I've had enough. All right, here's one more. It's going to piss people off. Number 7, because this pisses me off. These are going to piss you off because it's another one of these things of injustice, or it's going to piss you off because you don't believe it at all. And I get that. I understand. But there is a body trail to the Clintons. And we got one more to add to it. This was a journalist. Her name was Jenny Moore. She was found dead in a room at the Radisson County Inn Suites, Washington, D.C. on Monday. She had been investigating claims of alleged involvement of former President Bill Clinton in sex trafficking. 4 weeks before her death, Moore provided information with interviews from alleged victim to the Department of Homeland Security, and allegations against Clinton. Records show that she contacted DHS from July 6th to July 9th. She's former law enforcement. She's a serious business. Isn't some whack job investigating this, okay? She really had a victim who was giving her details enough that she felt she could take it to the FBI, she could take it to the Department of Homeland Security. In this article from SpiroForum.com, you can find all the texts she sent to her. She had a former FBI agent helping her who told her in these texts, you shouldn't go to the FBI. Rod Rosenstein protects the Clintons. I'm not trying to be InfoWars here, but this is another thing that I'm just getting real sick of, because how many times are we not going to get suspicious? There is a body count. Do the research. Don't listen to Snopes. I'm telling you how much they get wrong. There is real body count tied to the Clintons. And how much is it going to take for people to be suspicious of what's going on and somebody to look into it? Okay? They don't know. There's rumors she died of a seizure. The police have confirmed that she did not commit suicide. That's their typical MO. But there's no real answer to her death yet, why she died. Maybe it's just a coincidence. Maybe they didn't have anything to do with it. I understand if you don't like me talking about this. I get it. But I'm sorry, how much does it take for people to start asking questions and being suspicious of it? I'm not doing this because I support Donald Trump, because I really don't. I really hate all politicians. But I've had a passionate hatred for the Clintons since the late 90s, when I felt totally betrayed as a young teenager who I thought Bill Clinton was a good guy. And then I started to learn about what was really going on. And this is before Alex Jones and all that other crap and even the internet and that stuff. I did reading, I did research, and I found out how of a crummy president he was and how many things people should be questioning about what they're doing. And they should have no business being any part of the Democratic Party or in the White House. That's it. You don't like what I said? I understand. Don't watch. I'm not trying to be Alex Jones, but these things really irritate me, that there's just no suspicion and the media is just a joke. That's it. That's all I got. That's it for the World Wide Web of Weird. I'm sorry about the last rant. It's just something that just irks the heck out of me. For people watching on Facebook, we do play music out to Late Night in the Midlands radio network that you cannot hear. So do not freak out. We will be back. The quiet is just the music that you can't hear. All right, guys. We come back. We'll have our guests. Varla Ventura. We're going to talk about Paranormal Parlor when we come back. Share out the video, because obviously I screwed it up with the whole schedule thing, so I don't know how many people are actually watching right now. But, it tells me right up there. But thank you for watching, and keep sharing. Everybody that shares this show, that's all I can ask. And go donate to Late Night in the Midlands Radio Network. Keep the radio network alive for all the hosts. Such great shows on this network. When we get back, our guest, Varla Ventura, Paranormal Parlor. All right, see you in a few minutes. Tonight on Paranormal Soup, our returning guest is Varla Ventura, author of Paranormal Parlor. That's her newest book. We're going to be talking about that tonight. But she's written a lot of different books. She wrote Banshees, Werewolves, Vampires, and Other Creatures of the Night, Facts, Fictions, and First-Hand Accounts, Fairies, Pukas, Changelings, A Complete Guide to the Wild and the Wicked Enchanted Realm, Among Mermaids, The Facts, Myths, and Enchantments from the Sirens of the Sea, and The Book of the Bizarre, Freaky Facts and Strange Stories. Tonight we'll have Varla on, and we will also take phone calls after the second break. The last break of the show, and you can call in and share your own Paranormal Parlor stories with us. All right, let's get to our guest. How you doing tonight, Varla?
I'm doing great, thanks.
Sorry for the been better. Sorry for the rough start. Really sorry. But we'll get it all edited together, and it'll be up on our YouTube channel, and it'll be fun.
No one will know. Just the thousands of people listening right now, but no one else will know.
if there are thousands of people listening.
There's thousands.
All right.
That's what I was told.
I was telling you know I said you know people missed this because I was at the beginning of the show. Nobody was watching, but people I'm listening on Late Night in Midlands heard it. But I received this book in the mail. Like it was like a surprise. Like I was like opening the mail. I'm like, oh my god, Varla's got a new book because you gave me. I really love your work. You have the same kind of macabre soul as me. You know what I'm saying? You're interested in the dark and the unusual, and you love a good ghost story, and you epitomize that in your books, and you're really great with the history and the myth and lore. So when I saw this, I was like, oh my god, this is so awesome. And the cover is like, I don't know,
I love the
it's,
cover.
it's so beautiful. It's
I love
such
it.
I fell in love. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna love
Space
this book.
sized.
Yes, it's awesome. So this newest book, I don't know how you want to lead in. Tell people a little bit about yourself more than what I did, how you got into this, and what led up to the Paranormal Parlor.
God, okay. Well, thanks for having me. And that's very, very flattering. And I really appreciate that introduction. So I've always been, well, almost always, I was raised in an environment that was paranormal friendly. So I think that even from a young age, I didn't have an innate fear of ghosts or monsters. I liked them. I liked them. I had older siblings that, kind of helped coax that. They were of the Munster generation.
Exactly, the
Yeah.
monsters.
Yeah. And I just, my mother was very interested in the occult. She's a very open minded person, raised Catholic and converted to basically like wild pagan witch when she was a teenager. So I kind of followed in her footsteps. But yeah, she always had like amazing books on the shelves, like, they're Aleister Crowley, Dion Fortune. She's very
Oh
interested in the
wow,
tarot, the astrology. She did my chart when I was like the day I was born. She did my astrological chart. So that was kind of like the template for me. Those things like we always had like Halloween decorations up and like year round, and
like
um,
Christmas.
yeah. And then on our Christmas tree, we would have like those pumpkin lights because they were out already from
That's
Halloween, so we'd
awesome.
like put them on there. And just very kind of interested in that sort of like classic horror aesthetic. So like just my mom always just liked witchy things, but she also believed in a lot of those things and introduced me to like herbalism and some of the healing arts and the psychic arts at a young age. So that's kind of like my backstory. And then I just went on to be like, a complete teenage weirdo. And would have devoured the books that I wrote, like those topics, like the Book
Me
of the
too.
Bizarre and Beyond Bizarre, or like the Ripley's Believe It or Not meets the collection of Alfred Hitchcock short stories meets, Tales from the Crypt. And for me, those were like, okay, if I could, it
Neighbors, some
didn't
of my
really
favorite
occur to me.
things right there.
Right? It's like, oh, those are all good things.
Yeah,
So I think until I was probably, I mean, I was probably in my, gonna age myself here, but I was in my 30s before I really realized, oh, I could actually write about stuff that I like things that I want to read. And so that's kind of what happened with, excuse me, those two books, the Book The Bazaar and Beyond Bazaar. And then I'm kind of going like this because I have them all. I did not do that on purpose, but all my books are right there, except for the new one, which is right here. So I think that I just decided, and I find that when you finally get to a point where you realize, like, for anyone out there that's kind of struggling with their writing or their creative arts, I think you can't get caught up in like what does somebody want to publish or what does somebody else want to read. You really have to think, why do I care about this? What do I want to read? Would my friends want to read it? Like just maybe my family, or maybe not your family, but you kind of, you don't, I think if you cater too much to like what you think people are going to think, you get totally lost in that and you freak out, and you're already, if you're an artist, you're already hypercritical of your every move and every thought. So if you get too caught up in what like the imaginary world, the great world of people who decide things think, then you inhibit your creative process too much. So you got to have a little bit of like that rebel, like, I'm
Well,
just going to write what I want
writing's
to
a
write.
lot of work. I mean, it's a lot of work. So
It
how are you
is.
going to do it if you don't love what you're writing about? You know?
It's true. It's true. Well, you could be getting paid. So that's, we'll write for money. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of good.
I've written
I mean,
lots of things that are not under a pseudonym, that are not, the exact kind of book that I would pick up or the exact article I
but
would
you got
read.
to check,
Yeah, I get to
right?
check it. I don't write anything I feel ethically
No,
compromised about, but I mean, that's a place of privilege for sure, because I don't think everybody has that, and no judgments. Um, so
no.
anyway, that's kind of, I started writing like the books of the bazaar, and then I worked on some projects with my book publisher, Wiser Books. We did some paranormal parlor and magical creatures sort of ebook shorts, with the thought that let's see how these do. And they're all Kindle, like 99-cent little short horror stories with like introductions. But by and large, we found, and I had a nice conversation with the publisher, and I said, I think my people are print people. I think the books, which have like,
Right.
there's a lot of, let's see if I can find it. Here's a lot of spot art. Here's a nice spooky page.
Oh no, it's got beautiful art
Spooky.
in it, and yeah, exactly.
So
You don't get
it's
that in an
hard to,
ebook.
and you have flaps, which is like really
Yeah.
rare, right? Like that's a really nice touch. And there's sort of magical insignias on the spine. So we kind of were like, okay, well, let's see what happens if we can kind of recreate this in book form. And so out of that was born Among the Mermaids, um, Banshees, Werewolves, and Vampires. By the way, thank you for the Susie and the Banshees, for whoever could hear that. Totally appreciate that. Um, and then the fairies, pukas, and changelings. Those were all kind of born out of those original projects. So long story short, the paranormal parlor is something that is kind of my true love. Like above all else, I love a horror story, a haunted house, a seance, a story of a seance, the story of a haunted cemetery, somebody else's experience, and my own experiences. So in writing this, there were a lot of things that I really loved about it. And what surprised me is that I put a lot of myself into the book. Not that I haven't done that in the past, but I think when you're writing about fairies, like there's only so much of yourself you can insert in that. When you start talking about people's sort of, paranormal experiences, I think I set about trying to collect other people's stories, which is sort of my MO, and startled myself with how many of my own stories wormed their way into the
That's what I
into the
loved about
book.
it, though, is we got to get a little glimpse into Varla Ventura's childhood and adulthood weirdness, and
Yeah.
the experience you shared were really cool. But we'll get to it later. I don't want to maybe get into it now, but my favorite is the Ouija board
Oh,
story with your mom.
right. Yeah. We can
Yeah.
get to it now. I mean, we might as well
Okay.
start it off, because that's actually a good, I mean, I get asked like, what's your, what was like an early experience for you?
Yeah,
And for a lot of
that's a good
people, their
one.
experiences are, throughout their lives. And I think for a lot of us as children, we might be kind of, if you wake up and say there's a monster under my bed, your parent is going to come in and they're going to be like, there's no monster, there's no ghost, there's no man in the corner of your room sparkling and staring at you. You're just dreaming, and we're going to like soothe it away. But my mom wasn't like that. Not to say she set out to scare us, but she had a very different approach. It would be like, okay, you're having this nightmare. Okay, here's what you're going to do. You're going to have the nightmare again, but you're going to figure out a solution for it in a real matter of fact way. And it would work, because children are so suggestible, especially to like what their
I've done that.
parents.
I've told my son that same thing is,
That's
when
so
he's had
good.
nightmares,
I'm
like,
so happy to
go
hear
back to
that.
sleep. I don't know if it's worked for him or not, but it's one of the things I have tried to tell him how to. You're basically trying to teach your kid how to lucid dream, to take control of
Yes.
his dreams.
And I'll agree. I mean, like all parenting, there's a fine line between scaring your kids and like telling the truth
Being honest.
versus like when is it time to be honest, and when there's all these little dances that you do with all the magical creatures out there, including Scandinavian Christmas trolls and all of the good like spooky little things that are out there, and they're not all bad or scary, but it is a fine balance. So anyway, as a kid, there was one, I think I was like 7 or 8. My sister's a year older than me, so she was 8 or 9. I want to say actually that it was 8 and 9. And for Christmas that year, we had this box under the tree. It was so exciting. I thought it was Monopoly. It was a game, same size, game shape. And rip it open, and it's Parker Brothers Ouija board. And we didn't really know what that was, but we're like, okay, cool. It's a
You get to
game.
talk
We'll
to
try it.
spirits, kids.
Yeah. And I don't, I try not to like make my mom try not to grill her too much about these things because I don't,
Like,
I'm
what
old
were
enough
you
to not try and make my mom
thinking?
feel bad for things she did to me as a child. There's a point where you evolve past that, people. So if you're young, if you're under the age of 35, like you do eventually get to this point where you don't want to actually, make your parents constantly apologize for all the things they did to you because you're probably doing them to your own kid,
Right,
at that
exactly. I
point.
was
Like,
saying, no, you understand what they
you
did
do.
because
You
you're
understand
doing it.
how
You're
hard
like,
it is.
oh,
It's true.
yeah.
That's true. So anyway, it's funny because my son is about that age. So I'm thinking like, would I give him a Ouija board? Like honestly, like all things aside, would I give him a Ouija board? And it all comes down to like the type of personality of your kid. And I'm gonna say I think my mom saw in me that I liked this stuff. I think so. So anyway, so we get the Ouija board and then eventually we play it, my sister and I. And pretty right away, between the two of us, if you haven't used it, you put
Yeah.
your fingers on the planchette and it moves around. And pretty right away, like things started happening. Maybe not the first time, but the second, the third time, we started getting like conversations. And, it's kind of addicting. And I think that happens with people on the Ouija. Like they can get addicted. It's like, oh, this worked. Let's see what happens next. Let's see what happens next. So, also you're bored and you don't have Monopoly. You have a Ouija board. Totally, that's it right there that Jeff's putting out. Totally. That is it. That's exactly, yeah, that's like the
Yeah,
70 or
I
the
have a
early
copy
80s
of that one.
version
I have one of
the
those. I collect
Sumerian
Ouija
Oracle.
boards. I collect Ouija boards, but I
Oh, you
don't
do?
use I don't use them though. I collect tarot decks. I used to use tarot, but I don't really anymore. But I love this stuff.
Oh,
I've had people give me Ouija boards they picked up at an estate sale and stuff like that.
I don't think we live that far away from each other anymore. So at some point we should
Yeah, you're not
like,
far.
we can have a play date and you and I can play with the Ouija and the tarot and the kids can just like play
Yeah, right.
a
Probably
weirdo
in a
play date.
separate house with my kids because they're gonna be right up on it. And yeah,
Oh,
especially
right.
yeah.
Yeah. Can we
Hmm.
distract them with some candy or something shiny? So anyway, we were playing the Ouija board and kind of like right around this time, there had been this lone grave discovered on the neighboring property to my parents. And just to sort of set the scene, like at this point, this is the early 80s in Northern California foothills. My parents had left the San Francisco Bay Area, like many families, and sort of like, decamped to the foothills where there was a lot of, undeveloped land. My parents chose to buy a piece of property that was very, very far off the grid and no electricity, no running water, and just kind of get as far away from, the man as possible.
The
And
taxes.
right, the taxes and just everything, just my mother was raised in San Francisco and my dad had lived all over throughout his life and his childhood. So they were like, yeah, let's do this. So anyway, it's actually very unusual. As it turns out, it didn't occur to me, but this is a marble headstone,
Oh,
and it has a headstone and a footstone. Very, very unusual to see something like that by itself. Now, you would see something like
right.
that from a well-to-do family. Now, this is the gold rush era, so there's a lot of
Yeah.
people going up, and there was a mine up the hill if you went past. And in fact, where my parents live, there was an old orchard, and there was a hotel there that burned down, so it's got its own kind of like ghosts and things. Anyway, so there's this lone grave, and it belonged to a 7-year-old girl who had died. And again, this is very unusual to have something like that by itself. It doesn't appear to there doesn't appear to be other graves around it. And at the time, it was totally like bramble covered, like complete, like, can you imagine? And it was actually, this is kind of funny, but it was discovered by our neighbor who had peacocks.
Ew.
And her peacock had wandered like into the woods and she was looking for it and she could hear it calling and she literally stumbled upon this bramble covered grave. Anyway, back to the Ouija board. We're on the Ouija board and we make contact and it spells out the name of the little girl on the grave. And so I remember my sister's face. She looked really scared and she was my older sister. So I knew she wasn't faking it at that point. I didn't know up until that point all the times we had used it. Maybe she was messing with me.
Right.
Although
That's
that
always your
wasn't really
wonder
in
with the
her.
Ouija board, though. When you
You
really have weird
always
stuff
wonder.
come through, you're like, is it that? Are you doing it? Are you?
Right,
You know?
exactly. That's the first 15 minutes of any session is
Yeah.
just like eyeballing whoever's fingers are on there and kind
Yeah.
of watching them.
That's how it is for me.
Um, totally. Commonplace. So anyway, I think like my sister wasn't really that didn't have that kind of personality, still doesn't. She isn't, she wasn't always nice to me like any sibling, but
Big
she
sisters. Yeah.
she didn't yeah, I mean she didn't do things like that. That wasn't really in her style. But nonetheless, you're kind of looking at her and she's looking at me like, I'm sure you're doing this. I'm sure you're
Right.
doing
That's
this.
her thought.
And yeah, and later I actually talked to her very recently about this. We had a phone call like a few months ago and I said, "Do you remember this?" And I had sent her a copy of the book. I was, "Do you remember that story?" And she said, "Absolutely remember it." And what I remember being, I was very scared and thinking, realizing at a point that you weren't doing it and I was scared. And my memory, and maybe this is just adult Varla looking back, my memory is that I was like totally fascinated. I didn't want to stop. I wanted to keep going. I wanted to know what was going to happen. I wanted to ask a million questions about life after death and like, how did you die, and all those kinds
That's
of
right where
things.
I would have been at your age too. Yep.
Yeah. So anyway, so my mom walks in and she says, "Hey girls, what are you doing?" And yes, the same mother who gave this gift to us. She said, "What are you doing?" We said, "Oh, we're talking to, the girl who was," said her name, the girl was on the grave. And I'm only not saying the name because I do put it in the book, so you have to buy the book, but that's not actually why. I'm trying to avoid people like
Right.
figuring out the Easter eggs and then trashing this grave. You have to be
Right.
very careful with graveyards.
Yes. Yeah, I'd rather you not say it. We don't want people doing that.
Remains. No, no. So anyway, she walks in and she says, "Well, who are you talking to?" And we tell her, and she just gets this like look on her face. It's like that mom look of like horror of just like,
What have I done?
yeah. And she goes and she walks in and she grabs the board from us. And to this day, I can still hear the sound of that little plastic planchet because it was plastic.
Yeah.
Parker Brothers closing the board, and she puts it under her arm and she leaves. And we're just like, what? What's the big deal? What's going on?
We're just
And then
talking
I'm
to
sure
the
we
little
just,
dead girl. I mean, what the
yeah.
heck? You know, she's our neighbor out in that graveyard, right?
Yeah, I mean, she's just like us, only dad. And so my mom is just like, no. She said, "You know what, girls? Sometimes there are things that come through. You might open a door and you are not capable of closing that door." And so we just were like, okay, mom's final word. Okay, closing the
Mom,
door.
why'd you give me the keys to the door?
Right. It's
Right?
like, come on, mom, you could close the door though. We know you can.
Right?
We know you know how.
She probably
So
did. She probably did
she probably
something.
went off and did something, and she never, I don't know what she did with the board. And years later, many years later, I asked her, "Do you remember this story?" And she said, "Oh, kind of," in that like
Yeah,
mom
like
way of like,
mom
so many
guilt.
things have happened in my life. I can't recall all the
Yeah, I don't
details.
remember that.
And she said she doesn't remember what she did with it, but she did remember kind of that moment of thinking, I don't know if I prepped them properly. And she said, "You guys were just too young." That was kind of her like final word on it. You were too young. So that's my Ouija story.
Hey, ages eight and
Kind of my
up.
first introduction.
Parker Brothers
Ages
says
eight and
ages
up.
eight and up.
It says it right on
I'll never forget. I work retail, and I'll never forget a couple Christmases ago. This little girl walked in my store, and she was all happy because her parents just bought her a pink Ouija board. Parker Brothers made a pink Ouija board. I was
right.
like, yeah, I was like, wow. And the parents are just like, oh yeah. I'm like, oh, okay, okay.
So they totally like they took it. I mean, it was kind of off market for a while there, and it was hard to find them. And
That's what I
then now
thought.
more recently, they're reshelved. I saw a Stranger Things one. Did you see that
Oh
one?
yeah,
There's
I
like a
want it.
Stranger
I've
Things
seen
edition,
it, and
also
I
by Parker
want it.
Brothers. Classic Ouija, which is slightly different from the original package, but
Yeah,
for those of us who are old school and want that, Parker Brothers
I,
edition,
I
pink
want.
Ouija.
I want that Stranger Things when I've seen it. I want it so bad.
Yeah.
I have the glow in the dark one even.
Ooh, that's
Mm,
cool. Actually,
yeah.
that's funny. I remember painting. a planchette when I was a teenager because I just got my own when I was, old enough to get a job and had my own money. And I remember painting a planchette with glow in the dark. I painted everything with glow in the dark paint. It was like the bane of. See, the thing is if you paint your room, if there are any teens out there listening, if you paint your room with glow in the dark and you have like sort of, any color wall, really, your parents can't see it until the nighttime. So you can totally like paint all over your walls and no one actually can see it until, because it doesn't, on like a large surface, you have to use quite a bit of it. And even still, it just has a very faint glow to it. So if you had a really dark wall, it might stand out a little more. You just do that kind of like behind
I can
behind a
already
book on the
picture your room with
bookshelf.
black lights and everything as a
I know, right?
teenager.
There were a lot of pictures on the walls and things.
Susie and the Banshees, right?
Susan Banshees, that was not until I was like 14, but yeah.
Not
No
aging
burning candles
anybody
at home.
here.
No, it's
No,
okay.
neither
It's
me
okay.
either.
I think the screen kind of covers all the wrinkles, so we're okay.
What what I loved about that story though was the fact that it was your wonder of the paranormal, because I'm like, that's how I was as a kid. Like, like your sister
Yeah.
was like, I'm scared. You're like, and you're like, whoa, what do the spirits have to say? That was me.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's that some people like us are just born with that innate wonder of the mysterious, and a wonder about the other side. We believe in it, but we want to know more about it,
Hmm.
and that's why you love a good ghost story. And you have so many good ones in the story. You have friends that contribute ghost stories in this book. You talk about some of my favorite locations in this book, like the Stanley Hotel, and what was some of the other ones in there that you talked about? I got to remember, 'cause it's been a little bit since I read the book, but
Oh, there's a
um,
whole section on haunted
oh,
hotels
I
and
love
haunted
that. I love haunted
sanitariums and
hotels.
haunted cemeteries.
Hmm.
So there's only 13 listed
You know what I was
because,
surprised you didn't have in there as a haunted cemetery though? Because you had Archer Ave, and that
Mhm.
that cemetery, which is the Lady in White, La
Right,
Llorona,
right.
right? Which I love that story, and I've been through Archer Ave a bunch of times. Um, is Bachelor's Grove.
Oh, where's that? In
It's right.
Illinois?
It's. I wish I had Bill on here because he'd give the directions. He's my Illinois guy. I think it's somewhere near Homewood, Illinois. Is it? Oh God, I
I
can't remember.
Because I've heard of it.
You should
I
go. We
had
should meet
to.
there.
Okay, that sounds
Yeah,
great with the Ouija board.
yeah,
I had to narrow it down. I really wanted only 13. Like that was
yeah.
like my thing. Was like I'm gonna have 13. And I think in the Book of the Bazaar, and I think this might be why Bachelor's Grove, besides the fact that I know that it's haunted, I think I may have like I think I have a more expanded section in the Book of the Bazaar, like a whole chapter. But I wanted like my top 13. Like I kind of want it to
Yeah.
be a bucket of blood list. That's what I like to call them. Um,
Well, you
and
read
but
up on
yeah, I
Bachelor's
know there's
Grove.
so
You'd love it.
many. I will. I
Sa-
and
80
the thing
satanic
we really should
rituals.
meet there
Yeah,
because
80
it's probably
satanic rituals
equidistant.
were there. They believe mob hits happened there, but in the 80s, people were like digging up graves and stuff. When I went there in the 90s, you could actually still see the remnants where some people had dug up graves. And you don't see it
There's
now. They've like cleaned it all up. They have a whole restoration society that went in there and did an excellent job of cleaning it up. But yeah, I was wondering, like, I wonder if she knows about Bachelor's Grove. You got to check that one out. When I was thinking
yeah.
about when you brought up like Archer Ave and all that, and I was like, ooh, Illinois, you're not far from there. You should check that one out.
I really, whenever I do interview, I really need to keep a note. I don't have a notebook
I'll
next to me,
send you
but
a
I
link.
I often take notes because every time I'm on a show like this, or someone is a knowledgeable host and they share like their favorite local things. So I'm fairly new to the Midwest, so I haven't explored a lot of the greater Midwest
I'm
and
your Midwest guy.
really, yeah, what part of the Midwest do you live
I'm in
in? You live
Michigan
in
City, Indiana. If you look at the tip
Michigan
of
City.
Lake
Oh, you're in
Michigan,
Indiana.
I'm
Yeah.
right. I'm right there.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah. Well, technically we're Great Lakes, right? I mean,
Hmm.
that's yeah. So,
But yeah, I love the haunted hotels are one of my favorite kind of haunted locations. Well, actually, what it made me think of is that I've done a couple shows. I did one with Paraversal Universe where we did like haunted like like they kind of put it up as like your top 10 haunted places, and I broke it up at that time into haunted archetypes, like.
Ooh,
And that's what I
yeah.
thought about when you were doing your book, when you're talking about the places. You're like, you're kind of still, you're covering what I was thinking about, like the kind of the haunted archetypes, you know, the haunted hotel, the haunted asylum,
Sanitarium, right.
cemeteries, you know.
Cemeteries, but there's like so many more, right? Because you could get
Yeah,
like haunted roads and
that's
byways, which I did
exactly
cover a bit in the Book of the Bazaar. So I was trying not to like repeat, because the Book of the Bazaar is a huge book, and I put like everything I loved into it, because that's what you do with your first book. You put everything in there, and then you wait for them to cut some of it.
right.
But absolutely, I love, and I like the idea. There are archetypes of like haunted forests, haunted
Yeah,
lakes and streams. I mean, you could go like just have a whole book just about that based on the archetypes. One of my favorite places is the St. Anthony. I think it's called the St. Anthony, and that's the one that's in San Antonio. And I think I like it the most because I actually had two experiences
right.
there. And of course, I stayed there knowing that it was an older hotel and knowing that it was supposed to be haunted, but I didn't know any of the backstory of it, and I didn't know why or anything like that. But my sister and I, the same sister who, we did the Ouija board. And what's funny is that she has a different approach to things. She's almost kind of like she accepts all the paranormal things. She has a lot of experiences and a lot of things happen to her, but she's a little bit more like, I don't want to say standoffish, but she's just a bit more like practical about the whole thing. And of course, I'm the total like, what happened? Oh, tell me everything. She's
Yeah.
like overly enthusiastic about it. The little sister. So, anyway, the St. Anthony is a beautiful hotel. And so that right away, anytime you stay in a historic hotel and you walk into this lobby that makes you feel like you're like Lauren Bacall or something, and you walk in and there's glittering chandeliers and like gilded furniture and a piano, grand piano playing, and just beautiful carpets. And it was really, and I
It's
think
like
it's
time
actually,
travel. That's what I
it
like
is.
about
It's
it.
like,
Yeah.
and it's almost like you walk in and you hear the music. It's like that scene in The Shining where he
Yeah, that's
walks into the
exactly what I was
bar,
thinking.
right? And the music is all on, and the people are there, and he's getting a drink from the bartender, and it's like it's really happening. And this hotel was actually very lively when we stayed there. It was like the summer, I think, and or like September, or early, like late summer, early fall. This was a number of years ago, and I think it may have been like restored and passed ownership since then. So I haven't been there in the last like 5 years to confirm, but I know a few people. I actually met this great couple on a tour in Jamaica of like a haunted plantation, and they
Oh,
had just gotten married, and then they lived in San Antonio. So right away I was like, did you ever stay in San Anthony? I had an experience there. And so, because we were on a ghost tour.
yeah.
So it was absolutely beautiful. And I had like two experiences. Do we have to take a break or anything soon?
We are coming up on a break here. Yeah,
Yeah.
in a minute.
Okay. I'm trying to like be a little bit mindful of that.
You leave
So
them
the
hanging.
I could leave him hanging. So the simple experience, I can tell you, was just laying in bed at night and hearing this noise in the bathroom over and over again, like a little, like a little plastic bottle or something was being thrown against
Yeah.
the tile, and it was over and over and over again. I kept hearing, it kept waking me up. And my sister, sleeping in the next bed, she's got her headphones in. She's listening to like, I don't know, Harry Potter or something, totally sacking out. And I keep hearing this thing, and I actually get up at one point. I'm like, is there anything going on in the bathroom? I lay back down. I hear it over and over again. And when I get up in the morning, I fully expect to walk into that bathroom and just have like it be thrashed. Like it sounded
Right.
like things thrown around in there, not violently, but enough that you woke me up. And yeah, and I walked in there the next morning, and everything was pristine. And I was like, what? No, something fell. Like it was maybe vibrations or something, but something definitely fell, and everything was perfectly in place. So that was kind of that's my mild story for what happened. And I had a really cool thing that happened when I was up on the roof. So
We'll save
I
that
can tell
after
you
the
about that after
commercial
the
break.
break. Yes.
Leave them hanging.
Perfect.
So, all right, guys, we play music out to Late Night in the Midlands Radio Network. Go there to the website, subscribe. You can listen, but you can't hear the music on Facebook because Facebook wouldn't like that.
Aw.
No. But Go to late night in the Midlands Radio Network.com. Subscribe. We have a chat room there you can go to if you don't want to hang out on Facebook or you got to just listen. You can do that. When we come back, Varla Ventura is going to tell us her story at the St. Anthony Hotel, right? Is that what it is? All right. Awesome. When we come back, I also want to talk about you went to Preston Castle too, didn't you?
Oh, yes. Oh,
Yeah,
yes. A
I want to
whole
get to that
overnight
one.
experience. Yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah, I want to talk about that one too. All right, when we come back
Okay,
with
great.
Varla Ventura. Tonight, our guest is Varla Ventura, author of Paranormal Parlor, her newest book. We're talking about the ghost stories in there, the haunted locations. I want to definitely talk tonight too, because there's a lot of stuff in here about the kind of about the spiritualist movement of the early 1900s, which is something that's always fascinated me. So definitely want to talk about that. But we want to get to her haunted story about the St. Anthony Hotel, and also she has got one from the Preston Castle, which Jamie's been to, so I'm sure Jamie's going to want to get in on that. But you can call into the show. Tell us about your haunted story tonight. I'm sure we'd love to hear it. Or if you got a question for Varla, feel free to ask. The phone lines are open. You can call in at, of course, I should make them open. I don't think they are, actually, right now. The phone lines are about to be opened, and now they're open. Okay, there we go. Phone lines are open. You can call in at 219-230-4444. You can also call in by Skype. There's like 3 different Skype lines, so let's go. First Skype line, Soup Live Chat 800 Live Chat. Type in that Soup Live Chat 800 Live Chat. That's the video Skype line. You can call in. We can see you. Varla can see you, and you can see us. And then you can call in by the audio-only Skype lines OOJBland, OO, or that's OOJBLAND, or call in at JBland Paranormal Soup. That's another Skype ID you can call in. And if you call in and you don't hear us calling on you, you're muted, I will call on you, and then you know you're online. Also, if you call in and I hang up, just call back. I had somebody else on the line. All right, let's get back to our guest. All right, so we were talking about your St. Anthony Hotel experience. You had the creepy thing, waking up to something you hear moving in your bathroom in a haunted hotel. I have other shiny memories that scarred me as a child, is the Jack Nicholson walking into the bathroom and seeing a beautiful woman, and then he starts to have marriage infidelity and pays for it big time when she turns into an awful hag. And I begged my mom to let me see The Shining as a kid. I was like, please, mommy, please let me see The Shining. And she let me and regretted it because I freaked out after that. I had like total nightmares about that scene right there. So that's what I'd be thinking about, waking up in my hotel room that's haunted and hearing noises in the bathroom. I'd be waiting for a beautiful woman to turn into a hag if I walked in there.
Well, yeah, that could have happened also. It's funny, just you mentioned that, and when I also saw The Shining like way inappropriately too young.
Yeah.
And I think it was just one of those times. It was the 70s, and also my parents, like, they were one of the early adopters of HBO. This was before we went and lived.
That's why I got to watch it.
So it was on
Same
HBO.
here.
It was like,
yes.
Ooh, there's a movie on. And here's the best part. So my mom, she doesn't cover my eyes when there's like a fountain of blood running into the lobby.
Right.
In that scene, when he walks in, she covers my eyes so I don't see the naked lady. Which, of course, she covers my eyes like this, right? So I can totally see between her fingers.
I think my mom did the same, yes.
She pulls them back when the lady's not naked anymore. It's just like that hag who is so scary and rotty and like grabbing him.
Yeah.
And like, so
laughing.
I was like, you covered up the naked lady, and yet
but you let me see that.
You let me see the guy chasing his
butt.
family with the axe, and like,
but you're gonna cover the naked lady.
The naked lady. Yeah, because that's gonna scar me. So.
Right.
Yeah, well, of course. So that's probably why so many of us are so interested in haunted hotels, and it's wonderful that the mind of Stephen King. There is a long history of these ghosts, many of whom kind of worked their way into his story after a stay there, and so it's very cool to think of somebody turning that into this like iconic book, which is just as wonderful as the movie, if not more so. There are different elements to both. And usually I'm like, oh, the book's always better. But in this case, I don't know. The movie was pretty amazing.
Well, no, I'm a huge fan of the book. Actually, I'm a huge
Yeah,
fan of the book. I've read it
because it has the
several
hedge
times.
monsters,
The hedge
right?
monsters that aren't in the movie, they blow up sorry, spoilers, but they blow up the hotel at the end. Like,
Right.
yeah, yes,
Right.
the remake they made was pretty close to the book. It just didn't pull through.
I
Like they did
never
the
saw
acting.
the remake.
The remake is really close to the book, and it's filmed at the Stanley Hotel.
Is it?
Yes, what he based
Okay.
it off of. That's another
I
reason
should
why I like.
probably watch that
That's
at
I
some
like it
point.
because it has the real hotel that inspired
Right.
Stephen King. They couldn't film it there
Right.
at the time. But we don't get into Stephen King. We want to get into your book, though. We want to get your book and your St. Anthony Hotel
My St. Anthony
experience.
Hotel. Yeah. So the big experience that I had there, just exploring the hotel up and down with my sister and riding the elevators here and there. And we were, I forget what floor we were staying on, like the third floor or something, but we rode the elevator up to the top. I want to say it's the 10th floor, but we went to a roof garden. And there was no one else really out there at the time. And we were just kind of like, oh, this is nice, taking in like the twilight of San Antonio on our little Texas adventure. We were down there to see some family, so this was kind of our like sister time before we got into the family, and just kind of wandering around. And I think we were on the deck already, and then I went back by the door, and we were actually going to go back down to our room. Knowing me at the time, I was probably going to go grab some cigarettes or something like that. So anyway, we're standing by the door, but we're still on the roof. And I look down and I see this figure crossing from. So if you're looking down the hallway, I see this figure crossing like this, and it looks like a woman. To me, it wasn't. My immediate impression was like it was a woman, and it was slow enough that I saw it, and I saw this woman look like she was just wearing like a long black dress or something. Undetermined era. I wasn't sure about that, but I had this, and my sister, she's looking at me. She's kind of standing over here, and she looks at me, and she said, "Did you just see something?" And I was like, "Yeah." She could tell by the look of him. I was like, "Yeah, I saw something. I'm just gonna run down the hall really quick and see if it was just like
Right.
a person,
You got to
because
know.
the elevators were right there." And this is all, these things, they always take place in the span of like less than 60 seconds, but they feel like they took 20 minutes or something. So I run back down the hall, and I'm 100% convinced that I'm either going to see the elevator doors closing, or someone's going to be standing there waiting for the elevator, and I'm just going to be like nerding out, like, oh wait, I gotta get my sister, whatever. And I get there and there's nothing. I don't see anything, and I'm just like, okay, that was pretty weird, and it was very, very distinct. Like, I absolutely saw a person crossing in the hall. Now, just to be clear, I have had a lot of paranormal experiences, but I have not seen. Most of my paranormal experiences involve like touch and sort of like, I've had a lot of things where it's like pressing down on the bed,
Right.
pulling of the hair, just hearing things, feeling that there's something in the room. I have had a few encounters where I have seen something, but it's pretty rare for me. And one thing I think that happens, and people can probably relate to this, is that when you have a paranormal experience, you don't always think, oh, I'm having a paranormal experience right now. You are thinking, what was that? I'm going to explain it away. I'm going like rational mode. Even if you're like the biggest like ghost junkie, you're still like in that moment.
Ghost junkie.
Often you're just like, you're just like, okay, that cannot be what I saw. And
You want to
so,
know that
so
it's
like,
a real experience. That's why you run down that hall to see if there's a
yeah,
person at the end of it.
yeah, and I definitely, you think it's real. Like, believe it or not, in spite of my obvious leanings, I am pretty pragmatic about things like that. And the other thing I think is, people always say, well, how come you're not scared of ghosts? Well, in my experience, and I know people have had more terrifying experiences than I have, but in my experience, when you have a paranormal, when you're having a paranormal experience, like I said, you're not thinking like, okay, I'm in this paranormal experience, and you're actually in like kind of like survival mode, or scientist mode, just even for a few seconds. You're like, I'm going to figure that out. It's kind of after the fact when you're like, wait a second, that doesn't add up. That was definitely something. And you do get a feeling, but this was just very, like, that was one of the first times in a long time that I had seen something, and I'm, totally, it was absolutely a person, and it was
You
crossing
said
the
she was
hall,
wearing a
and it
black
wasn't there.
dress.
It was
Looked
just
like
like a woman in a long black dress. So later I found out, and I think I have it I opened it when we were on the break, because that hotel has this really rich history.
right.
And so it says that in one of the rooms, room 536, if you're booking a room, is said to be the site of a suicide when a man who had committed a gruesome murder at the nearby Gunther Hotel killed some people, checked himself into the St. Anthony, and then when the police came looking for him, he offed himself. So, on more than one occasion, guests have checked into the hotel and gone to the rooms to discover that they are already occupied, usually by a couple enjoying
Yeah.
cocktails. When the guests complain to management, the hotel promptly sends up security to figure out why someone was in the wrong room, and they always find the room empty. So there's a lot of history in that hotel, and I think there's been a couple of shows that have investigated it. And it's a little bit under the radar for some of the haunted hotels, which I like about it. But now that it's put out on Paranormal Soup, everyone's gonna know.
I don't know how many people watch or listen, but yeah, maybe a few more people. But I said room 536. That's where you
Yeah,
need to
room
go book that
536 where
room.
you got to book. That's probably booked like years in
That's my
advance on a Halloween
retirement
night.
plan, just so you know. I went on RV, and me and my wife are gonna like book rooms in haunted hotels and or
Awesome.
the haunted rooms. That's my dream retirement, like
Paranormal
vacation.
van. You're just
Yeah.
gonna be like, see, now I thought you were gonna say like your retirement plan was to have like an Airbnb or a bed and breakfast, and then just like tell people that it's haunted, and
No,
you know,
no, I want
make
to go to the
constantly
real
be booked.
ones.
Like, yeah,
I want to go to the real ones and stay in the rooms. I want to go to the
yeah.
Stanley Hotel and stay in the same room Stephen
I
King
know.
did. It's
I
like
know.
where they moved
It's
his
very
clothes.
expensive, so you need to lower
Yeah,
your
I
costs, your
know.
daily costs,
I
right? And
know.
like get your kid on a scholarship for college so that you can stay in the Stanley
I need to
Hotel
make
as
it with
much
the
as
show,
possible.
people. Help and
Yeah,
share.
help
Well,
out.
get it out. Somebody pick up the show and pay me for it. That'd be great, and I can go on that tour
Yeah.
later in life, right?
Yeah, you already have commercial breaks built in. I
Yeah,
mean,
I'm not getting paid for anything.
you're ready. You're ready. Right there.
But that's what I want to get in. Tonight too. I was saying when we're coming back, one of the things I really love is what I think it's the third part of the book is the seances and the Ouija
Yeah.
board part because you get into the spiritualist movement and some of my
Yeah.
favorite. I just really such an interesting time in the history. I mean of America, and I mean it was just America, but it was big time in America. But it's an interesting time because we're entering the industrial revolution. We're making strides in science and everything, but the religious movement, Christians back then were not like Christians now. They were open to the idea of spirit communication, talk to the other side, and you make comparisons to women who channeled, like my favorite one, and I know about these stories already, but is the lady who channeled Mark Twain. And
Yeah.
you made the statement is like maybe it wasn't real. I guess you were kind of getting at maybe she didn't channel Mark Twain, but this was also it was such a unique time because a woman could either be a prostitute, a mother at home, or they could pretend to be psychic or be
Right.
psychic and
You did read
have
the book.
yeah, oh yeah, I totally read the book. I love the book. But you're making a point about like this was a way for women to get the spiritualist movement. A lot of women went with it because they were able to get their writing out there that nobody would respect unless they told them they got it from a dead male, like Mark
Yeah.
Twain. But I
Or they
also
had a
want
fake name that was male. Yeah.
well,
Like
trying to
George
think.
Eliot, right? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, not the same exact era, but still, like George Eliot, yeah, that could be a man.
No.
We'll buy that.
Patience. Was it Patience?
Yeah. So Patience Worth. So the woman's real name was Pearl Coran, and Patience Worth was the famous author.
Spirit
So, yeah, she was the
author.
spirit. Yeah, well, you're absolutely right. That movement was very strong in the United States from about 1840 to about the 20s or 30s. That's kind of when it started to dissipate. It was popular also in parts of Britain and, of
Yeah.
course, other parts of Europe and Canada, but most strongly prominent in the United States. And you have still examples of that with the community of Lilydale in New York, which is still a spiritualist community, an entire town that was established for people to develop their psychic abilities, talk to spirits, hold seances, have conversations with living people who are like-minded, foster this kind of community. It was really a, sort of a ghosty commune. So,
Yeah.
yeah, so you absolutely did. You had, and I find, I've always thought the spiritualist movement was very interesting. That sort of when, not that people weren't trying to speak to the dead prior to that and weren't after that, but this was a time in which it became, there was a sort of a religious fervor about it, saying that not only could you make contact with the afterlife, but that they had messages for us and that those messages were important to kind of lead us in our next steps in life. And I think we have tailings of that still, of course, today. And just in regards to like Christianity, this actually was a very interesting time because most spiritualists were considered themselves Christian. It was not like a pagan kind of like free for all. It was
No.
not in conflict with any teachings that people, they were basically just talking to the dead. At some point, of course, there were people and there were characters who were labeled evil, and women who were persecuted for these kinds of like statements and things. But this is also a time in which women were persecuted for wearing something that showed an ankle. So, there were absolutely, especially at the beginning of this movement into the early 1900s, you had a lot of women who this was kind of like a way that they could make a living,
Yeah.
get out of the house. I'm not saying that they weren't legit or they, some were and some weren't, but it did provide this avenue to be successful. And Patience Worth is an excellent example. The woman who channeled Patience Worth, her name is Pearl Coran. She was from St. Louis, and she started channeling the spirit through initially she made contact, I think, on a spirit board and a
Yeah.
Ouija board, and then later was able to kind of put herself in trance. And what she did is she did automatic writing essentially, and she wrote poems and novels that were completely they were very highly regarded. She was deemed poet laureate for a while, so she had a great deal of success. And it turns out that she was friends, and the woman who first brought her ever to her first seance ever was this woman named Emily Grant Hutchings. And Emily saw probably at least the beginning of Pearl's success with Patience Worth. And Emily began attending these seances as a scribe for the spirit of Mark Twain, who had made contact with this medium in the past and was looking for a scribe on Earth. And when Emily came to the seance that particular day, she identified her. And throughout the course of over a year, Emily, the medium, whose name has escaped me at the exact moment, and Emily's husband, Mr. Hutchings, they all worked together to channel this novel via the Ouija board. And so here you have the like painstaking task of letter by letter using the Ouija board as sort of a typewriter. And they wrote this entire novel. It's like 45,000 words. It's called Jap Haron. And it's about this, it's Twain-esque for sure.
Yeah.
And it's kind of about this young guy who inherits a newspaper and kind of goes on all these adventures. And it's set in sort of an ambiguous Midwestern town with a river and, all those kinds of things. And it
Twain
talks a lot
elements.
about Twain elements. It talks a lot about, there's a lot of talk about grammar and like the publishing process with the newspaper, which is also interesting. But Emily also had a background as a journalist. And there's some evidence to suggest that she had some correspondence with Twain. So what happened is she did write this novel. She found a publisher. A publisher was very interested in publishing spiritual works at the time. And they got it out. It was hit the stands. And the thing is they called it Jap Haron. I think the subtitle was a novel by Mark Twain via the Ouija. And so because they used that Mark Twain name in the title, especially, they were sued by Clemen's daughter and by the publisher who owned the right to the pen name. So the right to the Mark Twain and the rights to continue publishing his work. So it was sued. It was taken off the stands. Most of the copies were destroyed. And so that's why most of us haven't heard this, even those of us kind of in the know haven't necessarily heard the story. And in my book, I do talk about sort of the provenance of it and where Emily was coming from, as well as some excerpts. The best part of the book, in my opinion, is the intro that she
Yeah.
writes, in which she describes
The
these,
process.
yeah, these salons that they would do, these ongoing seances where they would transcribe this work. I mean, it's absolutely incredible. So that is, like I said, I've read the entire novel. I've read it a few times, trying to grasp what's really going on. I'm not a Twain scholar, so I can't say
Right.
definitively how Twain it is. It's definitely got Twain, it's Twain-esque, but I also think he has a very strong writing style, and so it can be sort of easy to mimic that
Right.
to a certain extent. Whether or not she channeled all of these things, she believes she channeled all these things, it's almost irrelevant in the grand scheme of the story and what a landmark story it is in terms of the spiritualist movement. I think it was published in 1916, and that was right around the time that like
The height.
Patience Worth stuff. Yeah, it
Yeah.
was like really the height, and it was the Fox sisters were out there traveling around, and of course they were proven to be charlatans. So there were just different elements of it. You know, you had people who were very, very authentic and had real abilities, just like today. You have people who are like totally authentic and totally psychic, and
And
then you
those are
have
the
people who
frauds.
are just like, hey, 1-800, call me, and you know they've got their and they've got their shtick. And it's very hard to discern when you're looking at works that were written in the late Victorian era, because in addition to, I mean, there's almost a language barrier there. I mean, it's
Oh, yeah.
really there's you got to like sift through. So when I started reading that book first and I read that introduction, I just thought, and I was intrigued by it because it said it was a novel written by the Ouija. But when I started reading it, I couldn't, am I reading what I think I'm reading? And I went back and I reread it and I was like, yeah, that's what she's getting at. And then eventually, after I read it, I did a little more research into her and her story. And it's actually an entire book's worth of
Oh, yeah.
information about her because it's such a cool story. And what,
I knew
yeah,
about the story before I read it in your book, but I never had a lot of detail on it. There's, you got the internet postings and stuff, but you really provide a good, clear story, as best you can in a short form, because it's
yeah,
only one part of the book, but it's something I've always been interested in. So when I
it's
saw
so
that you
cool.
had that in the book, I was like, ooh, because I've always been interested in that.
Yeah.
And I always wondered, I mean, you know, I find it interesting. It's like they were transcribing it, and he's like, he's trying to like spelling out comma, like because he wants a comma in it. So then
Yeah.
they put commas on the Ouija board, so
Yeah.
it'd save him time, and
Oh, there's all these great quotes in that introduction from Twain saying things like, "You've got to move you've got to put parentheses marks on there and move them up because I'm dying running at the board and not being able to
right.
get them and trying to get them to do contractions instead of like spelling the words out. And it's just they're trying
Or
to
when
take some shortcuts."
my favorite is he goes, when I say damn it, leave it as damn it and don't change it to darn it.
Yeah,
Like,
right, right. It's like, don't edit me.
yeah,
Yeah,
don't edit me. When I say it, I mean it. Leave it that way. I
yeah,
thought
leave
those
it
are
that way.
interesting. Part of me wants it to be true. It seems so
I know.
interesting. You wonder if it could be. It made me, that story makes me think. I'm a big Star Trek fan, and Gene Roddenberry belonged to a group of people who believed in channeling,
Hmm.
and they were channeling stuff like stuff that he might have influenced Star Trek. That's always the speculation, is like when he was going to this group and they were doing channeling and he was a part of it, and they were supposed to be channeling like people, aliens, not ghosts, aliens from
Right.
another, from out in the universe. And then he comes with all this stuff in Star Trek. You wonder, how, is it people, can people really do this, can and have we been influenced by aliens through channeling, or ghosts through channeling, could write a book. It's
Right.
interesting, because I believe the
Right.
mind's capable of reaching out to the cosmos and to the afterworld and being able to make contact. I think it's possible.
I mean, even if you, Aleister Crowley did it, the Book
You're
of the
right.
Law, which is sort of, the Bible in many ways for followers of his, he went into a trance in a Egyptian pyramid and wrote that entire thing.
Yep.
And so I have
It,
not dabbled a lot in automatic writing myself. I would love to write an entire novel through a spirit. It would
right.
be so Absolutely.
It's my
He's
favorite.
so,
There's a Stephen King reference. My favorite, the Tommy knockers. The lady, like, one
oh,
of the
right.
powers she gets is like she just has the typewriter typing on her own, taking her thoughts and
Oh,
making it a book. I'm like, oh my god, if that, give me that. Aliens can fry
right.
my
And
brain with green ooze. As long as I can do that, I'm cool.
yeah, and it can be a typewriter. It doesn't have to be a computer. I'll
Right,
scan it later. No
right.
problem.
Whatever you need to
Take over my
use.
typewriter.
Yeah, would be awesome. But
Yeah.
what I, this is like, like I said, I got to this part in the book, and I'm like, ooh, this is, man, this is like something I've been so interested in, is channeling and the ability to take something from the other side, because there's a number of examples. It's not just Patience Worth or I forgot the lady's name that wrote the Mark Twain stuff, but there's other
Emily
people.
Grant Hutchings.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
there's a lot of people who've done this over the ages. That have believed they've been able to channel famous people and
absolutely.
make their work ours. These aren't the only stories of that. Now we do have a phone call on the line I want to
Oh,
take here
fun.
real quick. Who do we got on the line? We got Zach on the line. How you doing tonight, Zach?
I'm doing pretty good, brother. Staying busy as ever. How about yourself?
Doing great. Congratulations on your new cigar shop job, where you definitely belong.
Yeah, it's. I'll tell you, last night was definitely very eventful. We did get a lot of people come out.
That's
So,
awesome. Congratulations. You got a question for our guest tonight? You always have good ones.
well, I actually have two questions tonight. So, Varla, it's very good to meet you. My first question goes back along the lines of spiritualism and Christianity. Now, to a lot of people, especially a lot of like evangelical Christians and all that, spiritualism and Christianity are like oil and water. They don't go together. My question to you is, when did that schism allegedly occur between spiritualism and Christianity to where they became recognized as two separate entities? Are they separate entities? And if they're not, what are some of the roots in Christianity that give like credence over to spiritualism that is really no different from Christianity?
Okay, that's an awesome question. So I think that initially, the since the spiritualist movement came to rise around the mid 1800s, one of the things that really made it okay to be in daily households and for it to be something that wasn't necessarily in conflict with being an upstanding citizen slash Christian, were the fact that there were many well-known people who were practicing some of these things. I mean, it's well known that Mary Todd Lincoln had been
Oh
conducting
yeah.
seances in the White House. The other thing that you have is you kind of like, I think Jason mentioned like the Industrial Revolution. So you had things happening to people that they couldn't explain. So whether you went to church on Sunday or not, all of a sudden there's something, maybe it's in the local store, this telephone thing where previously you could only get messages that were driven, by horse or steamer train or something. And now you can pick up this little device and you can get this, this voice, this disembodied voice kind of coming through. So I think that those things gave rise to the popularity of the idea of being able to contact someone from the other side. And I don't think it was in direct conflict with Christianity because now, in the interest of full disclosure, I am not a Christian. So I can't talk to you.
Really? Wow, I am so
Shocking.
shocked.
And nor was I raised Christian. So my familiarity with Christianity is as a scholar, or as not even a scholar, but just kind of general awareness. And, my brother was a Sunday school teacher. So I went to Sunday school a few times with him and did not burst into flames. So that being said, and I'm talking about specifically in the United States, you have such a conflict of cultures and different beliefs and things like that. So I don't think that people really, like, a lot of people were upstanding citizens and they did believe in Christianity and all the teachings of Christianity, and they would attend church and they would attend church services, and they used a lot of those kind of beliefs and just like social rituals that translated into the spiritualist movement. So the gatherings, the talks, the discussions about spiritual works versus like a Bible discussion. So I don't know that it was in conflict throughout the majority of that era. However, I do think there are some examples in which it was in conflict and people did believe that certain women especially were in cahoots with the devil. Hey, we've been taking that for thousands of years. We'll just keep on going. We know you think we're in cahoots. We might be. We're not going to tell you if we are. Kind of the the unspoken rule of womanhood. So anyway, I think just to answer your question, I do think that there were some people in particular who were persecuted. One of the examples I can give you is Ida Craddock, who was a spiritualist, and she channeled materials. She wasn't persecuted specifically for that. She was persecuted for distributing lewd materials, which taught women about what to expect on their wedding night. And she would send these pamphlets out that you could send her $1. And there was this man named Anthony Comstock and his Society for the Suppression of Moral Vice. And that's who persecuted her to the point where she was eventually arrested and took her own life with left a scathing letter to Anthony Comstock after 6 years of being persecuted. And left one letter to her mother and one letter. She was facing basically a life in an institution, and she chose instead to take her own life in that instance and let this really heart-wrenching letter to both her mother but also to him, saying, you put me here and you're wrong. But she was actually said that most of her knowledge came from her marriage to a spiritual being who would come and visit her in the night, an angelic being. So I see a lot of crossover with the belief in angels, the belief in, there's lots of ghosts in the Bible, right? There's lots of disembodied voices.
Or communication with the dead.
Communicating with dead. So I think it had a sensibility that people understood. And because it was sort of commonplace and becoming more commonplace, and some of the more famous people were doing it, it didn't seem as threatening or in conflict with, in other words, you could go to a seance on a Saturday night and you could still go to church on Sunday and not feel like you had done something immoral. It also had an entertainment value to it. So there was an entertainment value. So that didn't mean everybody sitting at a seance believed it, or sitting in the room watching the Fox sisters believed it, but there was a fascination about it. So it was just a popular thing to do. So that's my super long answer to your awesome question.
It's a great answer, though.
No, it definitely gave me a lot of answers for sure. But I'll keep my second question very short. But my last question is, though, you've conducted many seances before. What are some ways that you can be able to distinguish between a spirit who had lived prior compared to a benevolent spirit who's never lived, a demon, for example?
So I actually have not conducted a great many seances myself. Most of my communications have been kind of more solo, but I have attended and helped instrument a few sort of informal seances. And essentially, just like any ritual, you have to take some precautions. So you do have to, you have to take some mind, body, spirit precautions. Always good to have a witch on hand to help you with those. So if you can get a little circle of salt and a way of kind of protecting yourself, and just everyone there should be a willing participant and should be aware of the sort of like the pros and cons of being there, or the dangers. And I think I think this goes back to the story of like my mom saying, like, you could be opening a door. And, I've heard this over and over again, that often like a spirit, and you see it in all the horror movies,
right,
a spirit that comes through is something entirely different than what it poses as. So it's going to pose as a little girl because I was a little girl and it wanted to talk to me. It's going to pose as something non-threatening, but it could be something more malevolent. So I think there are some like steps that you take, both in like your personal, the way that you conduct yourself during a seance, taking it carefully, being respectful. I hate those, I like all the haunted whatever shows, but I hate those ones where they like yell at the ghost and they're just like, come on, talk to me. Yeah, it's just like,
bro,
yeah, I would so not, yeah, totally. Look at me. I would so not want to talk to you if you were, I'd be like running the other way. So in terms of, there's really nothing you can do ultimately if something, negative is going to come through, but I think it has a lot to do with your mental state. And I do think there's a certain level to the Ouija board that involves like sort of telekinesis. And so if you're putting a lot of like weird energy and you're scared, then you're going to have you're going to have a reaction that's scary. There's, if you do open a door and there's something crazy that comes through and things start flying around, you've probably got a weak link in your circle, is what I would say. Because if you have a strong link with people of sound mind and who have taken care to take it seriously and be respectful, then the odds of that happening are much lower, I think, in my experience. So,
Did that answer your question, Zach?
wear a
That
pentagram.
does. No, Varla, that definitely does answer my questions, and I do appreciate you answering them definitely very thoroughly, so that way I definitely have a full understanding of it. So thank you so much once again.
Thank you. Thank you for asking. Yeah.
Thanks for calling in, Zach. You have a great night, bud.
Hey, you too, brother. You take it easy.
You too. Now, one of the things he talks about, where did the because nowadays a lot of the Christians be like, "Oh, that's the devil to talk." He's right. It's definitely changed, but it was there. It was still there was definitely Christians back then that weren't approving of it. I think of Edison. He, a lot of people talked about him trying to create a machine to talk to the dead. It was actually he was using like a light beam, if I remember right, or something like that. It would flicker, like try to do Morse code. It was his idea. And when his backers found out about it, they were Christians, and they did not like the idea of him trying to communicate with the dead, at least through electronic means, and they shut it down. That's at least the urban legend behind it. And I always found that interesting. That's that same time period.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's true. And he did dabble in the psychic arts, and it's not really widely known, mostly because, I mean, it kind of makes sense if you think about him being this like experimenter and open-minded and trying all of these things, and also making contact and creating the light and the sound.
It scared people.
It scared people. Yeah. I mean, it's a new thing. It's like, you're used to like rubbing two sticks together to get your fire going or whatever. Right. And now you just flick this switch. And so that has so much to do with the wonder and the increase in obsession with these kinds of things, especially during the spiritualist movement, because so much was changing in like daily society then. And if that was possible, who's to say this isn't possible? So I think the other thing to keep in mind is that it wasn't that long after the Civil War. There were people who had lost a lot of people. And so I think anytime you have that, you have people who really want to make contact. They need that comfort. I think that's why Mary Todd Lincoln was so into it, because she was trying
so much death,
the child they had lost. And so I think there were a lot of, whether somebody subscribed to it as like, really going out and trying to convince people to join this movement, versus people who would just try it, like, well, let me just see if I get an answer, or let me see if you can tell me, is my son okay? Like, is he suffering, or things like that. So I think anytime you have like such a huge, huge loss of life, and people feel that so directly,
I think they're going to be
devastated, and they're going to be looking for answers. And so, and that definitely played into the rise of this as a popular cultural thing.
I always thought the Civil War was the biggest influence of the spiritualist movement. Because so many people wanted to reach out to the dead because of so much of a loss of life. I've always thought that. And that's why I find that time period so interesting. There's so much going on. And just the people were open to it back then. And then we definitely went through a period where people weren't, And
well, and you had people like actually Houdini was
gonna say,
kind of the enemy of the spiritualist movement.
But not totally.
He was out to make sure that the charlatans were shut down, because he believed in the reality of it, and that it was, I do think he believed it was possible.
Oh yeah.
But he saw so many people doing these common everyday tricks, including the Fox sisters.
Yep.
So he wanted to make sure, like, he kind of wanted to shut down the idea that anybody could do it, and point out the tricks and say like, oh, this is how it happened. My favorite characters from that time, apart from like the women we've talked about, there's one thing that you see a lot of is, you saw a lot of abolitionists and suffragists. Mm-hmm. So people who believed in equal rights for women and for people of color were also very open-minded, and therefore part of the spiritualist movement, including this wonderful couple named Amy and Isaac Post. They were part of the Underground Railroad. They hosted Susan B. Anthony in a salon. They hosted Frederick Douglass. They also had the Fox sisters. And later on, Isaac actually became a very well-known channeler and wrote books and was actually very well respected throughout his life for his work in the spiritualist and psychic community. So that's kind of where he evolved to. And it's just so interesting to see this kind of all these different things that people were standing up for. And so it kind of makes sense if you have this really open mind that you would be open-minded to being able to talk to the dead, basically.
Yeah, but they're open-minded to a lot of things, culturally that people were against at that time, So yeah, it was an incredible movement and incredible things. One thing I wanted to say too, we were talking about channeling. You mentioned Aleister Crowley, and I always find interesting about his channeling is I can't remember the name of the being that he channeled at the moment, but he drew a picture of a painting, and it looks like a gray alien. If you ever go and find it.
Oh yeah,
you know what I'm talking about.
Okay, so. Yes, and actually, I think we might have talked about this a little bit last time because I think we were talking about the fairies, pukas, and changelings, and that I find a lot of those descriptions and illustrations and kind of the imagery of hobgoblins and goblins and different like fairy folk and trolls. And the idea that you would like basically be taken into the fairy mound and then you wake up like months later or weeks later, and you're skinny and you're drained and your clothes are in tatters and you're wandering around and everybody's like, where have you been? Oh, I fell asleep on the fairy mound. So similar to like these alien abduction stories that we hear, or like poltergeist, or just kind of like a lot of the kind of crossover with the paranormal world. You see like these magical creatures or these fairy creatures that seem like they could be the ones causing the mischief, which is actually a little more comforting than, I would rather be abducted by fairies than aliens personally. But,
right. I don't think that a fairy's going to anally probe you.
I don't know.
But I don't know. But that's what I've always wondered, was it just a primitive times way of describing something more sci-fi happening, that they didn't understand.
Are we, because we have all this technology, describing something primitive, but we're using our own new ideas for it, but really it's you got drunk and fell asleep on the fairy mound, tell the truth.
Right?
You're messing with the puka.
Yeah, right. But but it's something I've always been curious by. When you brought up Aleister Crowley, I always thought about that really creepy painting he made, and it looks like a gray alien. So you wonder what people are picking up on when they're channeling. What are the possibilities? What are the limits, or are there any limits? And what they could pick up on, and what's coming through. I mean, there's talk of the Nazis used channelers, the Thal Society, and that they use channelers and stuff, and they believed in the Vril energy, and they got very occultish with them. You wonder. They say they got technology through it. That they might have got technology through the channeling and all that, and you just wonder how many things or what's out there that could be resulted from somebody picking up something from another realm through their consciousness.
Right. Well, and you also have a lot of, like psychics that help police and investigations.
Oh, yeah.
Like, well, we tried all these other things. Let's get a psychic in here. And of course, like sometimes they're right, but sometimes they're wrong. I mean, some people are authentic and some people aren't. And that's just kind of how it goes. But yeah, I mean, I've had a few instances where I have tried to do automatic writing and have done automatic. You can't hardly read it, so that's part of the problem. I mean, I already have terrible handwriting. So.
Me too.
But I mean, I don't think it was like the most amazing work, but there was something kind of interesting in there. The other thing I wanted to say, was it Zach that called? His name is Zach.
Zach.
I think that one really important thing about going into like a seance or any kind of ritual like that, or a ghost hunt, is you really should be sober.
Oh God!
And
yes.
I don't know how many people are sometimes, and I think that very negatively.
It's a rule in my
affect
group.
the outcome.
Nobody's coming in if they're on anything. Heck no.
You really need to be.
We do get
sober.
another phone call, and I want to run out of time here, so let's go ahead and take this phone call.
Okay.
Got Laura Lee on the phone. How you doing tonight, Laura Lee?
Good, thanks. How are you doing?
Doing great. Thanks for calling in. You got a question for our guest? We got to make it quick. We got to end 5 minutes before the midnight hour. So
yeah, I'm well aware of that.
Okay. Go ahead.
Hi, Varla. I'm really enjoying
Hi.
what you're talking about. I was listening. With all your experience that you've had, have you ever found that you've had anything follow or try to connect with you?
So I have had a lot of experiences in a place. The probably the closest thing was when I lived in San Francisco after I had had my son. I had an increase in paranormal activity, especially in the haunted nursery. I like to refer to it.
Hmm.
I personally have not been, to my knowledge, been
Hmm.
followed by like a specific entity, but I do have a number of friends who think that they actually not necessarily are having unique experiences, but that there's so many similarities in those sort of like paranormal haunted experiences that they think they're actually being followed. I
Hmm.
have had the feeling that I have a protector on numerous occasions when I've been in danger in a car accident and things like that. So in
Okay.
that sense, sort of, but not by like a specific friend. I mean, I kind of wish like that would be amazing, but no.
You can have mine, my
You don't
Oh,
house,
want
but we
hers.
haven't
You
got
don't
much
want
time
hers.
left.
No, you don't
oh
want
dear.
Not
hers.
a lot.
She fries your equipment. No,
Yeah,
Yeah. Oh,
I
yeah,
fried
sure.
Jason's equipment,
no, no, you didn't. It's fine.
You know what?
but no
Actually,
problem.
that is a one of my closest friends. The same, like she's the same person that she thinks things follow her, and it's probably a specific thing follows her, and she has that. She cannot be around electronic devices. She cannot wear a
Yeah,
watch. It's very, very similar.
No,
And
no,
that's a
that's not me. That's not me. It's my house, but that would take a whole different
yeah.
discussion. I
Too
just
long for
wanted to
me.
call in and say hi. You know what? Thanks for taking my question so much, Varla.
well. Thanks for calling in. Nice to hear
Thank
your
you,
voice.
Lorley.
You have a great night. Thanks, Jason. Take care.
All right, have a good night.
You too. Bye bye.
But
So we have
yeah,
to end early because we don't want people to see what we really turn into at midnight, right? Like
right.
that's
Ghouls
so
and
we got to cut it
goblins.
early just to be safe.
No, no, no. There are Katie, our late night in the Midlands ma- manager would turn into a ghoul if I go past that time. So
Fair
we
enough.
don't, want to make sure we end that time. But no, again, you could write a whole book on the spiritualist movement, in my opinion, and
Absolutely.
everything that was going on in that time. And it's so interesting. The Fox sisters, the way their lives ended up, you know.
Oh, it's so
Uh,
sad, but also
it,
kind of
it,
funny today when you think of it.
yeah, because they were drunks and
The two
totally
the two
two of them
sisters who
were,
were the kind of the
yeah,
main performers were they died penniless alcoholics. Yeah,
yeah.
so that one was
But
funny.
Harry Houdini, you brought him up too. To me, he was kind of a hero in my opinion of that time because
It was
he
amazing. Yeah.
honestly. He honestly did believe in the ability to communicate with spirits. He held seances on his own. He believed his mother communicated with him and saved his life. He
True.
had a number of instances. He wasn't very open about talking about it. I don't think, but people, the legend of Harry Houdini, these stories have come down. There was instances in his life he believed in the paranormal and the possibility of communication. It wasn't that he was a
He
total
did.
skeptic.
No, but he did not like the spiritual. He was not really a friend to the spiritualist movement because the spiritualist movement was giving charlatans
A
the ability
lot,
to do these parlor tricks, which is
yeah,
the whole paranormal parlor. And for me, I sort of embrace all of the aspects of it, from the Fox sisters and their cheap parlor tricks to the person who hosted Frederick Douglass, and then the Fox sisters the next week. All those aspects of it make it really interesting, and the span of history is definitely very interesting. And Houdini is just, he's sort of unparalleled in many regards. But just because he was a friend to the psychic arts doesn't mean that I mean, in fact, that in many ways he wanted to take down a lot of the people in the spiritualist movement who he could, because he was a master, he could see what they were doing. He could see their tricks.
it
And
drove
so
him
he wanted to
nuts.
be very public about that. And of course, keep in mind, there wasn't television then. So you couldn't just get on television or internet and blast it out to everybody. You had to kind of take them down one at a time without revealing your own tricks. So it was,
Yeah.
yeah,
But
interesting.
the story is too. He got angry about this because he actually went to a medium to try to contact his mother after his
Yeah.
experience, and then he totally caught the medium,
Yeah,
pulling parlor
I think that's what
tricks.
set him in the wrong, like got him
Yeah,
like the bad taste for the spiritualist movement. And there were absolutely probably equal number of true experiences right along with
Oh yeah.
relatives. And like I said, some of it was entertainment value. Like people didn't, it was like going to the theater. They didn't necessarily expect that they were going to have this contact. But yet at the same time, you did have people who really were looking for answers. And so they were, they were taken advantage of by not, people who probably weren't as authentic. It's like, oh, just give me $20. I'll contact your.
But what I find interesting that whole time period is all some of the greatest minds and that were believers and open to it and experimented in their own ways. Tesla, I'm a big fan of Tesla.
Mm-hmm.
He believed in the possibilities of it. Edison, Dickens. Charles Dickens.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. We got
that's
a whole
good one.
bunch of stuff about Charles Dickens.
Oh
in
my
the
God,
book,
there's
too,
just so much good stuff in that time period. Like I said, that's a big part of the book, and that's one of the reasons I loved it so much. Now, just before we have to end, I want to make sure you get out all your information, people where they find your books, website, all that. So go. The floor is yours.
Home address. No, just kidding. So you can find me on varlaventura.net. So my name.net, and also on Facebook. It's just Facebook/Varla Ventura. Those are kind of the two main ways that I let people know what I'm doing and where I'm doing it and for how long. So, and you can find links. All my books are in print. You can find them on Amazon. You can find them on IndieBound, anywhere books are sold. And the newest book just came out in June, so it should be stocked. And if it's not, just ask your bookstore to order it, and I think you put links, like tons of links.
I got all the links to all your books. Yeah,
but if you just type in Varla Ventura into Amazon, you'll get like
all the good stuff.
Yeah. And a little bit of bad. Yeah.
It's definitely one of the perks of being a host is getting free books. And when I got that book in the mail, man, I was like a kid at Christmas. I was like,
thank you.
So excited.
That's really nice. And full props to the publisher for their amazing job in producing it.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show, Varla. It's a true pleasure. You're one of my favorite guests I've had, and now I got to have you again. I want to definitely have you on again, even if there's not another book. Next time we have you on, I don't care. I could talk to you about this stuff all night long. So thank you so much for being on.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it, and it was a lot of fun. I don't do a lot of video, so my earbuds, every time I laugh or smile, my earbuds are falling out. But thanks.
Well, thank you, Varla. It was great having you on the show. Like I said, definitely want to have you again. We had you on for the 100th episode the first time. Maybe we'll get you on for the 200th episode.
Ooh, nice.
50 episodes away.
Perfect.
Thank you so much, Varla. Next Sunday, we are going to have Marley Love on. I believe that's the 26th. Yes, Marley Love. We're going to have her on. She is... God, I gotta remember. I know psychic medium. I don't have my notes. I totally failed. I totally don't have my notes on this one.
She has an awesome name. So
she has an awesome name, so she'll be an awesome guest. I'm sure of it. Thank you, guys. Check us out at Midwest Paranormal Presents Paranormal Soup on our Facebook page. Check us out on YouTube at Paranormal Soup or Jason Bland. Check us out at Late Night in the Midlands Radio Network. Go to the website, subscribe, donate. Without you, we couldn't do all these great shows with all these great hosts. It's the #1 paranormal radio network around, and we need your help to keep it going. So go check it out, donate, and subscribe. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. Have a great night.
Thank you for listening to Paranormal Soup right here on Late Night in the Midlands Radio Network. Be sure to catch us here each week, Sunday night, 11 p.m. Eastern Time, 8 p.m. Pacific.